Welcome to a deep dive into the 50th Law.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
You know this one, right? 50 Cent and Robert Greene.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
This blend of street smarts and, historical wisdom is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I know you're probably already familiar with 50 Cent's journey.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is how he and Greene, the author of the 48 Laws of Power,
Right.
how they team up to explore fearlessness and power.
Okay.
So drawing these parallels between 50's life and then also historical figures.
Yeah, that's a really interesting combination.
So we're going to kind of unpack some of the key takeaways
Yeah, let's get into it.
on how to cultivate that fearless mindset
Right.
to navigate challenges and achieve your goals.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, it's intriguing how the book tackles the very essence of fear.
Okay.
That primal instinct
Yeah.
that kept our ancestors safe from saber-toothed tigers and all that.
Right.
Well, the book argues that fear has evolved, morphing into like a pervasive anxiety in modern society.
Oh,
Think about it. We're constantly bombarded with news and information that plays on our fears.
Yeah.
Even though statistically we live in a much safer world.
Way safer than our ancestors.
Yeah, way safe. It's like we're living in this state of perpetual, like, low-grade panic.
Yeah.
And that's actually hindering our ability to reach our full potential.
Exactly. The book argues that this constant, fear-mongering
Right.
has made us risk-averse,
Okay.
stifling creativity and innovation.
So what's the antidote?
Well, that's where the 50th Law comes in. The book posits that true power lies in mastering your mindset,
Okay.
specifically by cultivating fearlessness.
So instead of being ruled by fear, you learn to use it
Yes.
to your advantage.
Yes. The book even goes as far as to say that a fearless attitude can actually increase your control
Okay.
over your circumstances. And they back this up by highlighting.
Certain traits that fearless individuals throughout history seem to share.
Okay.
Boldness, a willingness to break the mold, adaptability, and a sense of urgency.
It's interesting that they point out these specific qualities.
Yeah.
Like, they're saying that fearlessness isn't just the absence of fear.
Right.
It's the presence of these, active
Yeah.
driving forces.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they use some pretty compelling examples to illustrate this point.
Okay, what have we got?
Take Frederick Douglass,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah.
Born into slavery, he continually pushed himself in the opposite direction of fear.
Okay.
He taught himself to read and write even though it was forbidden.
Wow.
And eventually he escaped to freedom.
Wow.
He embodied that boldness and sense of urgency
Yeah.
they talk about.
Okay, but what about 50 Cent himself?
Yeah.
I mean, he did come from the streets where fear was a constant companion.
Right.
How did he cultivate these qualities?
Well, the book highlights a turning point in his early hustling days. He was working with a drug dealer who also had a legitimate business.
Okay.
And 50 Cent saw the trap of relying on someone else.
Oh, okay, so instead of getting comfortable, he saw the danger of becoming dependent.
Exactly. He realized that to achieve his own goals, he needed to strike out on his own.
Wow.
Even if it meant returning to the more unpredictable world
Yeah.
of street hustling.
Yeah.
It was a bold move, but it demonstrated his commitment
Yeah.
to self-reliance and his refusal to let fear dictate his choices.
It's like they're saying that fear can sometimes lead us to settle
Yeah,
for less than we're capable of achieving.
that's a great insight.
Right.
And the book emphasizes the importance of self-reliance, not just in 50 Cent's life,
Right.
but as a principle for success
Okay.
in any field. They use the powerful example of Reuben Hurricane Carter,
Okay.
the boxer wrongly imprisoned for 19 years. Carter consciously maintained his independence and dignity
Wow.
within the prison system.
Yeah.
He refused to be broken by the experience.
They even compare his experience to how modern society offers all these crutches that can foster a sense of dependency.
Exactly. It's like they're saying that we're surrounded by things that make life easier,
Right.
but can also prevent us from developing our own resilience and resourcefulness.
So fearlessness is also about recognizing those potential traps
Yeah.
and choosing the path of self-reliance,
Yeah.
even when it's harder.
Right.
But it's not just about rejecting negativity,
Right.
right? It's about cultivating a clear-eyed view
Yeah.
of the world. What do they call it?
Intense realism.
Intense realism. Okay.
Nice. The book emphasizes the importance of developing a sharp, realistic understanding of the world. They illustrate this with the story of Socrates
Okay.
and the oracle at Delphi.
Yep.
The oracle declared Socrates the wisest man, which baffled him because he
Right.
didn't feel wise at all. He set out to find someone wiser, and through his conversations, he discovered that his wisdom lay in acknowledging his own ignorance.
So it's about being humble enough to admit that you don't know everything
Yes.
and being open to learning from others and experiencing the world
Right.
with a sense of curiosity and wonder like a child.
Yeah.
I love how they compare it to a child's mindset,
I know.
right? Children are constantly exploring and questioning.
Yeah.
They haven't developed all those mental barriers we adults tend to build.
Exactly. They're naturally fearless in their pursuit of knowledge
Right.
and experience.
Okay, so we have to like rediscover curiosity
Yes.
and embrace a childlike wonder.
Yeah.
But how does that translate into practical action?
Right.
They also talk about knowing the complete terrain, right?
Yes. The book stresses the importance of gathering information and understanding the intricacies
Okay.
of any situation. Napoleon's meticulous approach to warfare is a great example.
Yeah.
He was obsessed with details, studying maps, analyzing troop movements, and even factoring in the psychological states
Wow.
of his opponents.
It's like they're saying that true power comes not just from brute force,
Right.
but from deep knowledge
Yeah.
and strategic thinking.
Absolutely. And they offer another compelling example, Malcolm X.
Okay.
He went beyond surface-level solutions to understand the root causes of racial injustice,
Okay.
digging deep to challenge the systems that perpetuated inequality.
So intense realism isn't just about seeing the world as it is. It's about digging beneath the surface,
Yeah.
asking tough questions, and understanding the forces at play.
Precisely. And it's a skill that can be applied to any area of life,
Right.
from personal relationships to business negotiations
Yeah.
to navigating complex social issues.
This is giving me a lot to think about. I'm starting to see how this intense realism
Yeah.
can be a powerful tool for personal growth
Yeah.
and making better decisions.
It's a crucial step in cultivating fearlessness because it allows you to assess situations accurately
Yeah.
and make informed choices rather than reacting
Right.
out of fear or ignorance.
Okay, so we've got fearlessness, intense realism, self-reliance. What's the next layer of this fearless mindset?
Well, this is where things get a bit more controversial, but also incredibly fascinating.
Ooh,
The book argues that there are times when you need to be bad to achieve your goals,
bad.
especially when navigating the realities of power dynamics.
Okay, I have to admit the bad part definitely piqued my curiosity.
Uh,
Tell me more about this.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not advocating for being unethical, are they?
Not exactly. They're suggesting a more nuanced approach,
Okay.
recognizing that sometimes you need to strategically employ aggression, deception,
Okay.
even force to achieve your goals.
Okay, this is getting interesting. But how do they reconcile this with the idea of being a good person?
Well, they emphasize that this isn't about being ruthless or cruel. It's about being strategic and understanding that sometimes conventional morality
Yeah.
can hold you back.
Yeah.
They used Franklin Delano Roosevelt
Okay.
or FDR as an example.
What did FDR do? He always seemed like such a positive, uplifting figure.
He did, but he also had to contend with powerful political rivals
Oh, right.
who were determined to undermine his agenda. Instead of engaging in public battles,
Right.
which would have played into their hands, he chose a more subtle approach.
So he waited for them to self-destruct.
In a way, yes. He allowed their attacks to fizzle out while he worked behind the scenes
Okay.
to weaken their power base.
Okay.
It was a strategic move, and it worked brilliantly.
So sometimes being bad is about knowing when to hold back, when to play the long game,
Yeah,
and when to use more subtle tactics.
precisely. And they offer another intriguing example, Catherine the Great.
Okay.
Her husband, Tsar Peter III, was a master manipulator, constantly undermining her
Oh, wow.
behind her back. But Catherine, instead of reacting emotionally, bided her time, cultivating allies and building her own power base
Oh.
until she was able to orchestrate a coup and take the throne for herself.
Talk about turning the tables. That's a pretty bold move. And it definitely challenges our conventional notions of how women should behave
Exactly.
in positions of power.
And it shows how strategically employing those so-called bad tactics
Yeah.
can be necessary to achieve your goals, especially when dealing with those who are trying to manipulate or undermine you.
Okay, so being bad can sometimes be about self-preservation and playing the game strategically.
Right.
But how do they address the ethical implications of this?
That's a great question, and it's one they don't shy away from. They use Abraham Lincoln,
Oh,
a figure often revered for his honesty, as
yeah.
an example.
Okay.
They argue that even Lincoln had to strategically conceal his true intentions about slavery at times, knowing that pushing too hard,
No.
too soon, would alienate key supporters and jeopardize his efforts to preserve the Union.
So even someone considered a paragon of virtue had to make tough choices and bend the rules
Right.
to achieve a greater good.
Yes. And the book challenges us to consider these complexities, especially when dealing with power dynamics and navigating situations where conventional morality
Right.
might not be the most effective path.
This whole knowing when to be bad concept is really making me rethink my assumptions about leadership and what it takes to make a real difference in the world.
It's definitely thought-provoking, isn't it? And it's a reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to achieving your goals. Sometimes you need to be bold and assertive,
Right.
and other times a more strategic,
Right.
even bad approach might be necessary.
But isn't there a risk that being bad could backfire? I mean, what if it damages your reputation or alienates the very people you're trying to lead?
That's a valid concern, and it's why the book emphasizes the importance of controlled fear.
Controlled fear. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They argued that there's a difference between inspiring fear through random acts of cruelty or violence
Right.
and cultivating a reputation for being someone who is both powerful and intelligent,
Okay.
someone not to be trifled with.
Yep.
They use 50 Cent as an example again, pointing out that he had to project an image of strength and intelligence to survive on the streets.
So it's not about being a bully. It's about strategic use of power.
Exactly. It's about knowing when to assert yourself,
Yeah.
when to make a decisive move, and when to hold back. It's about cultivating a sense of respect
Okay.
and even a bit of awe.
Right.
So people think twice about challenging you.
It reminds me of what they said about leadership.
Huh.
Sometimes you have to be willing to be the bad guy,
Yeah.
to make tough decisions and push people
Right.
outside their comfort zones.
Absolutely. And they illustrate this with examples ranging from John Ford, the notoriously tough but brilliant film director, to Moses, who had to make some very difficult decisions to lead the Israelites to the Promised Land.
They even talk about Napoleon, right?
Yeah.
Not exactly known for his cuddly personality.
True. But what made Napoleon such an effective leader
Yeah?
was his ability to inspire both fear and admiration. He was a master strategist
Right.
and tactician.
Yeah.
But he also understood the importance of unifying his troops
Yeah.
behind a common vision.
It's fascinating how they show that effective leadership often requires a blend of seemingly contradictory qualities.
Yeah,
Strength and compassion, assertiveness and empathy.
exactly. And they connect this to the importance of genuine connection with your audience, which might seem at odds
Right.
with the being bad concept.
Okay, I'm curious. How do they tie those two seemingly opposite ideas together?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you be both assertive and genuinely connect with people?
Well, think of it this way. When you genuinely connect with people, you build trust and rapport.
Right.
You show them that you understand their needs and that you care about their well-being.
Right. That makes sense.
But you also need to establish boundaries
Right.
and demonstrate that you're not a pushover,
Okay.
that you're willing to stand your ground.
So it's about being both supportive and assertive.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between warmth and strength, between empathy and decisiveness. They point to Eleanor Roosevelt.
All right. She was known for her compassion
Yeah.
and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life.
She was.
Right.
But she was also a fierce advocate for social justice
Right.
and wasn't afraid to speak truth to power. She mastered that delicate balance
Yeah.
of being both loved and respected.
So it's like they're saying that true leadership is about finding that sweet spot where compassion and strength intersect.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's a powerful combination that can help you achieve great things
Yeah.
and make a positive impact on the world.
This is all incredibly insightful. I'm starting to see how these seemingly paradoxical ideas actually complement each other,
Right.
creating a more nuanced and effective approach to leadership and achieving your goals.
It's about recognizing that life is complex and there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
Sometimes you need to be assertive,
Right.
even bad.
Right.
And other times, a more compassionate and collaborative approach is required. The key is to be adaptable and to cultivate a deep understanding of yourself
Right.
and the situation you're facing.
This is giving me a lot to think about. So far, we've covered fearlessness, intense realism, strategic aggression, genuine connection.
Right.
and this fascinating concept of controlled fear. It feels like we're building a toolkit.
Yes.
For navigating the complexities of life and achieving our goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's next on our deep dive into the 50th law?
Well, next we'll explore the book's emphasis on momentum and flow and how these concepts can be cultivated to maintain that fearless forward motion. They use some fascinating examples.
Oh, okay.
From Leonardo da Vinci to Miles Davis, to illustrate how staying in the flow can unlock creativity, innovation, and adaptability.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in. This is going to be really excited about the possibilities.
Absolutely. So you're ready to kind of explore the power of momentum and flow.
Yeah.
It's a concept that really resonates, I think, with your desire to achieve your goals. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I'm all about forward motion.
Right.
And making things happen.
Right.
But I also know that maintaining that momentum, that creative spark, isn't always easy.
Right.
You know, life has a way of throwing curveballs.
That's true. But the 50th law suggests that momentum isn't just something that happens to you.
Okay.
It's something you can cultivate.
Okay.
Think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill.
Okay.
Gathering more and more snow as it goes. The key is to kind of get that snowball rolling in the first place.
Okay.
And to keep it moving in the right direction.
I like that analogy.
Right.
But how do you actually create that initial momentum?
Well, they use the example of Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about his insatiable curiosity earlier?
Right. He was a true Renaissance man,
Yeah.
exploring everything from painting and sculpture to engineering and anatomy.
Exactly. And the book argues that his constant exploration,
Right.
that willingness to jump from one field to another, was actually the key to his creative genius.
Wow.
It kept his mind engaged
Yeah.
and allowed him to make connections
Okay.
that others might have missed.
So his momentum came from his willingness to embrace
Yeah.
a wide range of interests.
Right.
And to see those connections between seemingly unrelated fields,
Right.
like cross-pollination for the mind.
Precisely. And it's a reminder that sometimes the best way to generate new ideas is to step outside of your comfort zone
Right.
and explore something completely different. You never know where inspiration might strike.
Okay, so we need to be open to exploring new things. But what about maintaining that momentum over time?
Right.
How do you keep that creative fire burning?
That's where the concept of cultural flow comes in. The book argues that it's essential to stay connected to the currents of your time, to be aware of emerging trends and shifts in thinking.
So it's not enough to just have a great idea. You also have to know how to adapt and evolve as the world changes around you.
Exactly. And they use a fascinating example. Miles Davis,
Okay.
the legendary jazz musician
Okay.
who was constantly reinventing his sound.
Oh, right. He went through so many different phases in his career, from bebop to cool jazz to fusion. He was always pushing boundaries and experimenting.
Exactly. He refused to become stagnant.
Yeah.
And the book argues that this willingness to embrace change was a key to his enduring success. He understood that to stay relevant, he had to stay connected to the cultural pulse of his time, to be a part of the conversation, and to keep his audience engaged.
That's a great point. It's like he was always one step ahead, anticipating the next big thing.
Precisely. Yeah. And the book suggests that we can all learn from Davis's approach. It's about being open to new ideas, being willing to experiment, and not being afraid to shake things up. It's about staying curious and engaged with the world around us. So we don't become stuck in the past.
Okay, so we need to be curious, adaptable, and willing to embrace change. But let's be real. Maintaining that kind of momentum and flow over a long period, it isn't easy. Life throws curveballs, motivation wanes, and sometimes it just feels easier to stay in your comfort zone.
You're right. It's not always easy, and that's where the book's emphasis on patience and persistence comes in. They argue that these qualities are essential for achieving any worthwhile goal.
I can see how patience and persistence would be crucial for navigating those inevitable ups and downs. But how do they tie these qualities back into the idea of fearlessness?
Well, think about it this way. When you're facing a challenge, it's easy to get discouraged, to give in to fear and self-doubt. But when you cultivate patience and persistence,
Okay.
You're essentially building up your inner resilience.
Yeah.
You're developing that mental toughness that allows you to keep going,
Right.
even when things get tough.
It's like you're training your mind to stay focused on the long game.
Yeah.
To not get derailed by those temporary setbacks.
Exactly. And they use a compelling anecdote about Isaac Newton to illustrate this point.
Okay.
You probably know about his groundbreaking work in physics and mathematics.
Right. He basically revolutionized science.
He did. But what's fascinating is that many of his greatest breakthroughs came during a period when he was forced into isolation due to the plague.
Right.
While others were succumbing to fear and boredom.
Wow.
Newton used his time to delve deeper into his studies.
Wow. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
He basically created a self-imposed intellectual boot camp.
Exactly. And the book contrasts his approach with those who give in to distraction.
Yeah.
And instant gratification.
It's like they're saying that true mastery requires a certain level of discipline.
Yeah.
And a willingness to delay gratification.
Precisely. It's about focusing on the long-term rewards.
Right.
Of hard work and dedication, even when those rewards aren't immediately apparent.
So patience and persistence are really about cultivating a mindset that embraces the journey.
Yeah.
The ups and downs, the challenges and the triumphs as all part of the process of achieving your goals.
Absolutely. And they provide some inspiring examples of individuals who embodied these qualities.
Okay.
There's Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight boxing champion, who meticulously studied his opponents and developed a fighting style based on patience and endurance rather than just brute force.
And they also talk about Demosthenes, the ancient Greek orator, who overcame a speech impediment through sheer determination and relentless practice.
Yes. He would practice speaking with pebbles in his mouth to improve his articulation. Imagine the dedication.
That's a whole other level of commitment. It's like they're saying that mastering any skill, achieving any goal, requires a certain level of grit. A willingness to embrace the grind.
Precisely. It's about understanding that true mastery doesn't come overnight.
Right.
It's a process of continuous learning, refinement, and pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
This is making me think about all the times I've given up on something because it felt too hard or I wasn't seeing immediate results.
Yeah.
I'm realizing that maybe I just needed a bit more patience.
Yeah.
And persistence.
It's a common struggle. But the 50th law suggests that those moments of frustration and self-doubt are actually opportunities for growth.
So instead of giving up, we should see those challenges as a test of our commitment and a chance to develop our resilience.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that everyone faces setbacks. The key is to learn from those experiences, to keep refining your approach, and to never lose sight of your goals.
This is incredibly empowering. It's like they're saying that we have more control over our success than we might realize.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that core message of fearlessness. When you cultivate those qualities of patience, persistence, and self-belief, you're essentially building an inner armor that protects you from the fear of failure and allows you to keep moving forward no matter what obstacles you encounter.
Okay, so we have all these incredible tools for cultivating a fearless mindset. Intense realism, strategic aggression, genuine connection, controlled fear, patience, persistence. It's like we're building a recipe for success.
Right.
But is there a secret ingredient?
Well, they would argue that the secret ingredient, the force that binds all these qualities together, is self-belief.
I can see how that would be crucial, but what exactly do they mean by self-belief?
It's that unwavering faith. In yourself and your abilities. That deep-seated conviction that you can achieve anything you set your mind to. It's the fuel that keeps you going when everyone else doubts you. The inner compass that guides you through uncertainty and challenges.
They use 50 Cent as an example yet again, don't they?
They do, and it's a powerful example because he faced so much adversity in his life, from growing up without parents to surviving a near-fatal shooting. Yet he always believed in himself and his ability to overcome any obstacle.
It's like he had this almost superhuman sense of determination.
He did. And the book argues that we can all cultivate that kind of self-belief, even if it doesn't come naturally at first. It's about recognizing our own unique talents and abilities.
Focusing on our strengths and silencing that inner critic that tells us we're not good enough.
So it's about recognizing our own power and potential. the power to shape our own reality. But how do we actually cultivate that self-belief?
Right.
Especially when we're facing self-doubt and insecurity.
The book offers several strategies
Okay.
for building that unshakable inner confidence.
Okay.
One is to defy all categories.
Okay. That sounds intriguing. What do they mean by that?
They argue that we often limit ourselves by trying to fit into predefined boxes.
Okay.
Whether it's based on gender, race, social class, or any other label that society imposes on us.
It's like we get trapped in these narrow definitions of who we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it stifles our true potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But truly powerful individuals transcend these categories. They create their own rules and define themselves on their own terms.
They use Amelia Earhart as a prime example, right? Yes. Earhart was a woman who excelled in a very much male-dominated field, right?
Yeah.
Aviation. She dressed unconventionally, spoke her mind, and lived life on her own terms. And it was this refusal to conform that made her such an inspiring figure. She defied expectations and blazed her own trail.
So it's about embracing our individuality and not letting others define us.
Precisely. And it's about having the courage to be different. To stand out from the crowd. Even if it means facing criticism or rejection, it's about trusting your inner compass and pursuing your passions, regardless of what others might think.
That's a powerful message, especially in a world that often tries to put us in boxes and tell us who we should be.
It is. And it's a reminder that true power comes from embracing our authentic selves. Even the parts that might make others uncomfortable.
I love that. So defying categories is one strategy for building self-belief.
Yes.
What else do they suggest?
Another powerful strategy is constantly reinventing yourself.
Okay, that sounds a bit like what we were talking about earlier with Miles Davis, right?
Exactly.
His constant evolution as a musician.
They argue that true power comes from adaptability and a willingness to evolve.
It's like they're saying that stagnation is the enemy of growth, and we need to be constantly pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
Precisely. And they use John F. Kennedy as an example, highlighting how he consciously shaped his public image to project strength and confidence, overcoming perceptions of weakness.
Right, he had that youthful charisma and energy. But he also worked hard to cultivate an image of leadership and decisiveness.
Exactly. He understood the power of perception and the importance of adapting to the changing demands of his role. And the book suggests that we can all learn from his example. It's about being willing to change, to experiment, and to step outside our comfort zones.
So it's not about being fake or inauthentic, but about recognizing that we're constantly evolving and that we have the power to shape that evolution.
Precisely. It's about embracing the journey of self-discovery and recognizing that who we are today might not be who we are tomorrow.
I love that. It's like a constant invitation to explore different aspects of ourselves and to keep growing and evolving.
Exactly. And that process of reinvention, that willingness to embrace change and challenge ourselves can be incredibly empowering.
Okay, so we've got defying categories and reinventing ourselves. What other strategies do they offer for cultivating self-belief?
Another fascinating strategy they discuss is creating a sense of destiny.
Destiny. That sounds a bit mystical. What do they mean by that?
Well, they argue that a belief in our own destiny, our own unique purpose in life, can be incredibly empowering. It gives us a sense of direction, a reason to keep going even when things are tough.
I can see how that would be motivated. It's like having a North Star to guide you.
Exactly. And they use the incredible example of Joan of Arc, the peasant girl who believed she was chosen by God to save France.
Oh, wow. Her story is so inspiring.
It is. And her unwavering belief in her mission gave her the courage to lead armies and achieve extraordinary things.
It's like she willed her destiny into being.
In a way, she did. And the book suggests that we can all tap into that kind of power by cultivating a belief in our own destiny, our own unique path in life.
But what if we're not feeling particularly destined for greatness?
Right.
What if we're just trying to navigate the everyday challenges of life?
Well, the book argues that even in those everyday challenges, a sense of destiny can be incredibly helpful. It's about setting goals. Developing a plan and believing that you have the power to achieve those goals.
So it's about having a vision for your life, even if it's not on a grand world-changing scale.
Exactly. And it's about taking action towards that vision one step at a time, trusting that you're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Even when you can't see the whole path.
Yeah.
Laid out before you.
That's really reassuring. It's like they're saying that we don't need to have all the answers right now.
Right.
We just need to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
And keep moving forward.
Precisely. And that trust in yourself,
yeah,
that belief in your own ability to navigate the unknown is a key component of fearlessness.
Okay, so we have all these strategies for building self-belief, defying categories, reinventing ourselves, creating a sense of destiny.
Right.
It's like we're building a toolkit for overcoming self-doubt and unleashing our full potential. But I can't help but wonder, is there a downside to having a strong ego? Can it go too far?
That's a great question, and it's one the book addresses directly.
Okay.
They acknowledge that ego, when unchecked, can become destructive. It can lead to arrogance, narcissism, and lack of empathy.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Having a strong sense of self-worth without becoming self-absorbed.
Precisely. And they argue that the key to finding that balance lies in recognizing that a strong ego isn't about putting yourself above others.
Okay.
It's about having the confidence to be yourself.
Yeah.
To pursue your goals and to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about using your ego as a force for good.
Exactly.
Not for self-aggrandizement.
It's about recognizing that we all have unique talents and abilities, and that by embracing those talents and sharing them with the world, we can achieve great things.
It's about recognizing that our individual success is ultimately tied to the well-being of the collective.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding that a truly strong ego isn't fragile or defensive.
Right.
It's open to feedback.
Right.
Willing to learn and grow, and always striving to become a better version of itself.
This whole concept of ego is really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's clear that the book is challenging us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to have a strong sense of self. But how does all of this tie back into the overarching theme of fearlessness?
Well, they argue that a strong ego is actually a prerequisite for fearlessness. When we're secure in ourselves, when we have that unshakable self-belief, we're less likely to be controlled by external forces. We're less likely to let fear dictate our actions.
It's like that sense of inner strength gives us the courage to face our fears head on.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that fear is often rooted in insecurity and a lack of self-belief.
Right.
So by cultivating a strong ego, we're essentially weakening the grip of fear.
It's like building up our inner defenses, making ourselves less vulnerable to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that fear is a natural human emotion. But it doesn't have to define us. We have the power to choose how we respond to fear. And that choice ultimately determines our destiny.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
Fearlessness isn't just about the absence of fear. It's about cultivating a mindset that embraces challenges, takes ownership, and fosters a deep sense of self-belief.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our own power to shape our circumstances and our destiny.
This has been an amazing journey so far. We've explored so many facets of fearlessness, from the streets to the halls of power, from the depths of our own minds to the vastness of the cosmos. But there's still one big topic left to cover, right?
Yes.
The one we hinted at earlier, mortality.
Ah, yes. The book ends with a profound exploration of death and its relationship to fearlessness. It might seem like a strange topic to end on, but they argue that it's actually essential for understanding the true nature of power and how to live a fulfilling life.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but a little apprehensive. How do they even approach such a heavy topic?
Well, they start by acknowledging that death is the ultimate reality, the one thing we can't avoid. And they point out that we spend an enormous amount of energy trying to deny this reality, clinging to comfort and security, avoiding anything that reminds us of our own mortality.
It's like they're saying that we're so afraid of death that we end up living half a life.
Exactly. But the book argues that this denial of death actually diminishes our experience of life.
Wow.
It makes us risk-averse, afraid to embrace new challenges, and ultimately prevents us from living fully in the present.
So by avoiding the thought of death,
Right.
we're actually limiting
Yes.
our lives.
Precisely. And they suggest that a much healthier approach is to embrace our mortality, to recognize that our time is limited, and to use that knowledge as fuel to live more intentionally and make the most of every moment.
Okay, that's a pretty radical idea. But how do they suggest we actually do that?
Right.
How do we embrace something that's so inherently terrifying?
Well, they talk about the concept of the sublime,
Okay.
which we touched on earlier, that feeling of awe and wonder
Yeah.
that we experience when confronted with something vast
Right.
and incomprehensible. They argue that these experiences of the sublime, these brushes with the unknown, can actually help us connect with our own mortality in a way. That's not terrifying,
Okay.
but inspiring.
So instead of fearing death,
Right.
we can find a sense of wonder and awe in the vastness of existence.
Precisely. It's about shifting our perspective, recognizing that death is a natural part of the cycle of life, and finding beauty in the impermanence of things.
They use some pretty interesting examples to illustrate this point.
They do. They talk about Ernest Hemingway and his near-death experiences.
Right.
How those brushes with mortality fueled his writing and gave him a renewed sense of purpose. They also mention the Japanese writer Kenko.
Okay.
And his reflections on the beauty of impermanence, how the fleeting nature of things makes them all the more precious. And they even talk about Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher,
Okay.
and how he used his contemplation of death to overcome his fears and live a more virtuous life.
It's like they're saying that by confronting our mortality, we can actually find a deeper meaning and purpose in life.
Right.
We can appreciate the present moment more fully and live with a greater sense of urgency and intention.
Exactly. And they argue that this understanding of death can actually make us more fearless in the face of everyday challenges. When we recognize that our time is limited, we're less likely to waste it on things that don't matter.
Right.
We're less likely to let fear hold us back from pursuing our passions and living our dreams.
So it's about using our awareness of death as a catalyst for living more fully in the present.
And precisely. It's about recognizing that every moment is a gift, and that we have the power to choose how we spend those moments. It's about embracing the beauty and fragility of life and using that awareness to fuel our creativity, our courage, and our determination to make a positive impact on the world.
Okay, this is all incredibly insightful, but it's a lot to take in. It's like they're challenging us to confront some of the biggest existential questions. Where do we even begin to apply these ideas in our own lives?
I understand it can be overwhelming, but I think the key is to start small. Start by simply becoming more aware of your own thoughts and feelings about death.
Okay.
Notice how often you try to avoid thinking about it and what emotions come up when you do.
So kind of like we talked about earlier, right? Developing that sense of detachment.
Yes.
That ability to observe our own thoughts and emotions. Without judgment.
Exactly. And once you become more aware of your own patterns, you can start to experiment with different ways of relating to death.
Like seeking out those experiences of the sublime.
Yes. Pay attention to those moments. When you feel a sense of awe. And wonder whether it's gazing at the night sky, listening to a piece of music that moves you deeply, or connecting with nature in a profound way. These experiences can help you tap into that sense of the vastness of existence, that feeling of being part of something larger than yourself.
It's like they're saying that by connecting with something bigger than ourselves. We can find a sense of peace and acceptance in the face of our own mortality.
Precisely. And that acceptance can be incredibly liberating. It can free us from the fear of death and allow us to live more fully in the present, embracing each moment as a precious gift.
This whole discussion of death and the sublime is really thought-provoking. It's clear that the 50th law goes far beyond simple self-help advice. It's a profound exploration of the human condition, our relationship to power, and the ultimate meaning of life.
I completely agree. And it's a reminder that true power isn't just about achieving external success. It's about cultivating inner strength, resilience, and a deep understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And that understanding includes our own mortality, which paradoxically can be the key to living a truly...
fearless and fulfilling life.
It's wild how facing our mortality can unlock that, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that death is a natural part of life.
Right.
And that by embracing this reality, we can free ourselves from fear and live more fully
Right.
in the present.
So I'm curious, as we kind of delve deeper into the 50th law,
Yeah.
there's one concept that kept coming back to me.
Okay.
The idea of recognizing when to be bad.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a bit of a head scratcher, especially when we've been talking about building self-belief and embracing our authentic selves.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, aren't we supposed to be striving for integrity and authenticity?
Yeah.
Where does being bad fit into all of this?
Well, that's the brilliance of this book.
Yeah.
It challenges those conventional notions of good and bad, especially in the context of leadership and power dynamics.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Give me the 50th law perspective on this bad business.
All right. So the book argues that a truly effective leader understands that sometimes.
Yeah.
You need to employ a less conventional, even a little bit bad approach to get things done.
So it's not about being unethical.
Right.
It's about recognizing that playing by the rules all the time might not get you where you need to go.
Exactly. And they emphasize that this isn't about being manipulative or ruthless just for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about understanding how power works in the real world.
Yeah.
And using that knowledge strategically to create positive change.
They use a lot of historical examples to illustrate this point, right?
Yeah.
Like Abraham Lincoln.
Yes. Lincoln, widely considered a beacon of honesty, serves as a fascinating example.
Okay.
The book argues that even he had to strategically conceal his true intentions at times, especially when it came to slavery.
So he wasn't always completely upfront about his goals.
Not exactly. At the beginning of the Civil War, his primary focus was on preserving the Union.
Right.
Publicly, he downplayed the issue of slavery.
Yeah.
Knowing that pushing too hard for emancipation too early would alienate key supporters and potentially fracture the already fragile nation.
So he had to play the long game, strategically revealing his true intentions as the situation evolved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a calculated risk, and it ultimately paid off. As the war progressed and public opinion shifted, he was able to move more boldly on emancipation, culminating in the Emancipation Proclamation.
It's amazing how they used Lincoln, a figure we revere for his integrity, to illustrate the complexities of leadership and the need for strategic flexibility.
Yeah, it really challenges our black and white thinking about morality, doesn't it? The book suggests that navigating complex situations, especially when power dynamics are at play, often requires a more nuanced approach.
So sometimes being bad is about recognizing the bigger picture and making tough choices that might not be popular in the short term, but ultimately serve a greater good.
Exactly. And they also point out that being bad can be a catalyst for positive change, especially when it comes to disrupting outdated conventions and shaking things up.
They use the example of black jazz musicians in the early 1940s, right?
Yes. Think about Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, pioneers of bebop.
Yeah.
They broke free from the established norms of jazz, creating a new sound that was more improvisational, more complex, and more expressive.
So in a way, they were being bad by going against the grain and challenging the musical establishment.
Exactly. But their badness was actually a form of creative destruction, paving the way for a whole new era in jazz.
It's like they were saying that sometimes you have to break the rules to create something truly innovative and groundbreaking.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And it ties back into that idea of fearlessness we've been talking about.
Right.
It takes courage to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
To go against the grain.
Yeah.
And to risk failure in pursuit of something new and different.
So knowing when to be bad is about recognizing when the old rules no longer apply and having the guts to shake things up.
Yeah.
But it's not just about breaking the rules for the sake of it. There's also this concept of controlled fear.
Yes. That was another concept that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that aura of power.
Right.
That makes people think twice about challenging you.
Right. It's like that quiet confidence.
Yeah.
That commands respect without having to resort to shouting.
Yeah.
Or aggression.
Exactly. They argue that true power isn't about brute force, but about inspiring a healthy dose of respect.
Right.
And yes, even a bit of awe.
They use 50 Cent as an example again, don't they?
They do. He learned early on that to survive on the streets and achieve his goals, he had to project an image of strength and intelligence, someone not to be messed with.
But it wasn't about being a bully or intimidating people for no reason. It was about being strategic with his power.
Precisely. It's not about being cruel or vindictive. It's about carefully choosing your battles.
Right.
And making sure that when you do act, it's decisive and impactful.
So controlled fear is about cultivating a reputation.
Yeah.
For being someone who is both powerful and fair.
Yeah.
Someone who can be trusted but also respected, maybe even a little bit feared.
Exactly. And they connect this idea to leadership, arguing that a leader sometimes has to be willing to be the bad guy to get things done.
Yeah.
To make those tough decisions that others might shy away from.
They use some interesting examples
to
illustrate this, like John Ford, the famously tough film director.
Yeah.
And even Moses, who had to make some difficult choices to lead the Israelites to the Promised Land.
Yeah, and they even talk about Napoleon.
Right.
Talk about someone who knew how to command respect.
Right.
And instill a bit of fear.
He wasn't exactly known for his warm and fuzzy personality.
True. But what made him such an effective leader was his ability to inspire both fear and admiration. He demanded excellence from his troops, but he also unified them behind a common vision, a sense of destiny.
So it's about finding that balance between being demanding and inspiring, between being tough but also fair.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the question you raised earlier.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile this idea of controlled fear?
Right.
Of knowing when to be bad.
Right.
With the book's emphasis on connecting with people authentically.
That's the part I'm still grappling with.
Yeah.
It seems like those two ideas might be at odds with each other.
It might seem that way on the surface, but the 50th law suggests that they can actually work together to enhance your leadership and influence.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about it this way. When you connect with people genuinely, you build trust and rapport.
Right.
You show them that you understand their needs.
Yeah.
And that you care about their well-being.
All right, that makes sense.
But at the same time, you also need to establish clear boundaries and demonstrate that you're not a pushover.
Right.
That you're not afraid to make tough decisions when necessary.
So it's about being both supportive and assertive.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between warmth and strength, between empathy and decisiveness.
I see what you mean. They use Eleanor Roosevelt as an example of someone who embodied this balance, right?
Yes. She was known for her compassion and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life.
Right.
But she was also a fierce advocate for social justice and wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo or speak truth to power.
So she was both loved and respected.
Precisely. And that's the key to effective leadership.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Inspiring both trust and respect. You need to connect with people on a human level while also demonstrating that you're capable of making tough decisions and taking decisive action.
It's like they're saying that true leadership is about finding that sweet spot where compassion and strength intersect.
Exactly. And that's a powerful combination that can help you achieve great things.
Yeah.
And make a positive impact on the world.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the 50th law. We've explored so many facets of fearlessness, from the importance of cultivating a strong ego to the profound implications of embracing our own mortality. It's clear that this book is more than just a guide to achieving success. It's a blueprint for living a more authentic, empowered, and ultimately fearless life.
I couldn't agree more. It's a reminder that we all have the potential for greatness within us. We just need to tap into it by embracing our individuality, pushing past our perceived limitations, and cultivating a mindset of courage, resilience, and unwavering self-belief.
What an incredible journey through the world of the 50th law. I hope you've gained some valuable insights into the power of fearlessness and how to cultivate it in your own life.
Yeah.
Remember, fear is a natural part of life, but it doesn't have to control us.
Right.
We have the power to choose how we respond to fear.
Right.
And that choice ultimately shapes our destiny.
And if you're looking for a more in-depth exploration of these ideas and the incredible stories that bring them to life, I highly recommend diving into the 50th law yourself.
You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself and your own capacity for fearlessness. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never stop exploring.